This is Elevate's Climate Changemakers, highlighting leaders in equity work and climate action. This season, we're having conversations with creators who are centering climate and environmental justice in their art. Let's dive in and meet today's changemaker.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today in the Elevate Cafe. I'm Ann Evans, CEO, and today's host, Adrian.
Hi, and I'm Adrian Fox, the Senior Associate of Social Media and Digital Communications at Elevate, and I'm your co-host.
Thank you, Adrian. We are so excited today to have this conversation with you, Candace Hunter, an amazing visual artist. She's award-winning. She has an amazing story and body of work. And today we're going to talk to her about an amazing piece that really focuses on water and water scarcity. It's called Dust in Their Veins, and it's a story about the global water crisis. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
We're excited to have you.
Yes.
So we want to start today by not actually asking you about your work. We want to ask you about your well-being. How is the world treating you, and how are you taking care of yourself?
Oh, wow. So COVID, I think, has taken us all to this ride, this roller coaster ride, that every day we turn on our TVs or our radios or have conversations, there's something new that's going on with it. And so it's been unsettling.
Yeah.
It's been very unsettling. But it's also been an incredible time for me to be able to kind of be still for a while and create a new body of work, because I was still and I wasn't out doing all the things that I had been doing in the past. So that stillness gave me a time of reflection. Now, in terms of how I've been taking care of myself, well, didn't get to the gym, didn't do any of those kinds of things that, I need to return to. But I'm very proud of myself. I know this doesn't seem like much to you, but today I walked 6 blocks.
Wow.
That's good.
Which, for me, that was like a milestone. I was just like, but it was hurting at 4.
But you kept with it.
But I kept with it. And
that's great.
Yes.
And I've been trying to do a little bit more every day to just try and start to get back to me.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad that you're taking care of yourself and going on walks and that you're doing good.
Thank you.
I would like to know more about Dust in Their Veins. Can you tell me more about how you got started and how it came about and just the process for it?
Absolutely. So I'm an artist in the past. I don't do this anymore, but and I do recommend this to most artists who want to see their work out there, that you have to keep a calendar of looking for opportunities. So I literally looked every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday online for opportunities. There were certain sites that I would go to, and I have certain rules for myself. If a jury fee was more than $30, I'd go, no. I would look to see who the jurors are. I would then do some investigation, if I could, on who those jurors were, to see if they were looking at anything like what interests me, because if they don't, that's a waste of money too. And there's enough being asked of artists not to just throw away money for a juror who's never going to look at your work. And so one day I saw a post for a show that was proposed at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis. And it was called Women and Water Rights, Rivers of Regeneration.
Wow.
I liked the title.
Yeah.
It was poetic. It was just like, and it was about women. Okay.
Yes.
Then the lead juror was a woman by the name of Lucy Lippard. So I don't know if you know her name. Do you know her name?
No.
So when I was in undergraduate school, everyone across the United States uses the same art history book. Everybody.
Really?
I didn't
They've
know
broken it down in little chapters now, but I used to carry around a tome like this every day, which was like backbreaking. And at the time I was in undergraduate school, there was only one female artist in that huge book. Yeah.
Wow.
There was only one African American artist in that huge book. And women were relegated. There was a little paragraph about women arts. So women arts were the decorative arts. It's what a woman would do in her home to make the kitchen look cute, to needlepoint, to do stitching, to just to make her home and her husband happy, you know, but it wasn't about women being in the world of art. Lucy Lepard was the art historian who changed that narrative. She was the first art critic for the New York Times. She was instrumental on bringing Judy Chicago to the forefront and the Chicago dinner table. If Lucy had not been there, Judy Chicago would not be known in the world. She's written over 80 books. She's probably been cited like 800 times, and she's getting long in the tooth. And I said, wow, I need my work in front of this woman.
Yeah.
I need her to see, even if I'm not a part of this, I need her to see my name one time on a piece of paper. That's what I need to do. It's like the rock star for me of art history. I was just like, she's the queen.
Yes.
So I was just like, so what is this? So I'm looking at, the description of this show, and it was about women and water rights. I didn't know what that meant. I had no clue what that really meant. You kind of like, but no. I live within walking distance to Lake Michigan, one of the greatest of the Great Lakes. Water is plentiful. We are the water wealthy here in Chicago. In Minnesota, they're the water wealthy. They're the land of 10,000 lakes. Water wealth. We can turn on taps, we can flush toilets, we can run water, though we shouldn't, but we do. We've got the things outside dogs can drink from, water fountains for dogs. That's how wealthy we are in terms of water. I started doing research on what does this thing mean, water rights. And then I started looking at a woman's role in this. There are two major conferences that had happened at that time. One had happened in Paris and one had happened in Buenos Aires on women and water rights. The tome that was available was probably like 800 pages and 1,200 pages. And I was going through the notes from both conferences and trying to get a grip, and I felt like I was back in graduate school. I was really working and studying and trying to, get a grasp on this thing. And I came away with just a few small truths. One was that the lack of clean water affects women and children of melanin first and foremost.
Yes.
Therefore, but for the grace of God would be me. Everybody that I saw that was negatively affected by lack of clean water were brown people, black people, women, and girl children. So when a woman has to walk all day long to gather water, she takes her little girl with her who gathers water. If that little girl's gathering water, that little girl can't go to school. There is no education in places that lack water for girls. And if there's anything I care about in the world, it's little girls and the ability for them to have a real life. And you would think little boys too, but no, there's an uncle or man sitting on the bank over here by the time the boy is 6, and he goes, not a boy's work, get over here. So he teaches him, I don't know how to fish or do darts, I don't know what they do, but the little boys don't go with their mothers. And it is not necessarily a problem of ecology. What it is more than anything else is corporate and governmental greed. that prevents women from being able to have access to clean water.
Wow.
I know, think on that one for a minute. It's true. And when I first started doing the show, I created these torsos that were headless and legless. And the reason being was that as I was going through all of these notes, the thing that hit me was that the woman who was suffering, she was never at these meetings where probably people were eating very, very well, staying in very lovely hotels, having wine in the evening and chatting with friends. They didn't get to do that. Their voice was silent, and they could not remove themselves from their situation. There's no, I'm just going to leave and go somewhere else tomorrow. So legless because they could not walk on their own, headless because they couldn't speak for themselves. And so the torsos were created to walk and speak for them. Also with the torsos, I would have little educational posts with each one to have you, the viewer, understand more than the prettiness of these pieces, but so that they could understand some real numbers and some real issues going on. When I first started the work, I was looking at sub-Saharan Africa, Central America, and in India. Those were the places I was looking at the most, which are the hardest hit. But as I would talk to people, I'd be like, but don't be so brash and so proud, because it will happen here. And I think the year after I said that the first time, Flint. Brown people losing everything, including their lives, because of what? Corporate and governmental greed that changed the pipeline from Detroit to somewhere else with iron that were in these pipes that were starting to kill children. Children, girl children, boy children too, but girl children. And then houses that are no longer viable on anybody's market, so you can't sell your house and just leave because you put all your life into this city, in this town, in this, your churches, your schools, and there's nothing left for you. And so now we're seeing it in Colorado, we're seeing it in California in certain parts, we're seeing it everywhere. But I'm going to tell you, if you look hard enough, who does it hit first?
Women and girls.
Brown and black people first and foremost. The poorest of the poor, because unfortunately brown and black people are the poorest of this nation.
And it really impacts Indigenous
Absolutely.
women and girls as well. You've spoken about this already, but can you talk to me from a real personal level about why this work around the environment and the climate crisis, why you brought it into your work?
I don't think that I did. I really don't. I've always known that I'm expected to be a technician and to learn, but ideas aren't mine. If any of us think that ideas are ours, we're crazy. It's like, oh, I made the rain. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I don't care what your belief system is. That does not come from you. So it was by some other grace that I saw Lucy's name on the paper. It was by somebody else's grace that I said, oh, let me look at what this means. That I found these instruments of education, that all of this was by another grace. That's not necessarily me. Right. I'm responsible as an artist to understand materials, to understand how I work with those materials, and how I best administer those ideas that are given to me.
Candace, your work, Dust in Their Veins, really highlights the struggles of women, black and brown women and girls around the globe. What about here in the United States? What about Indigenous women?
So as I've grown, the show continues to grow. So when the first iteration of the show, Flint had not happened yet. So since then, before I did a show down Champaign-Urbana at UIUC, whatever the initials are, I did a new torso to reflect the monetary issues of why Flint happened. And recently, I was listening to NPR, and there was an incredible woman on from the Navajo Nation. And she was speaking of water and lack of in many of the communities on the reservation that she lived on and the spots around her. And I had not until then considered those people whose land we stand on. So every piece of water drop that we drink really belongs to them. So for them to live shuttled over here where they don't have access to clean water struck me so hard. And I immediately went home and I asked my partner, I said, so I've got like 4 blank torsos, right? Left, because I'd had a lot cut. And I said, I want to do one all quill work. So wherever the next show lands, there will be one that's all quill work. And I wrote down the woman's name. I actually want to reach out to her and talk to her about prayer and how I include that in the piece as well. Because I want to honor that nation and I want to honor those people who suffer like somewhere else that I originally looked at. Because I was just like, this is wrong on so many levels. So the show does continue to grow when my eyes are opened. And when my eyes are open, then I try to share that so that other eyes open as well.
Thank you for that, Candace. Can you tell me which is your favorite piece of art from your exhibit and why?
So probably the favorite is, and so none of them have titles because they're all walking women. Some are done in collage, some are painted, some had plastic water bottles sliced off that I had a little hole underneath, so sand literally poured out onto the floor very slowly. So the end of a show, you'd have this mound of sand. But probably my favorite is one that looked at Central American traditions, and I had milagros. Are you familiar with a milagro? So it is a Mexican charm that's usually tin or silver, and it could be the Virgin Mary, it could be praying hands, it could be a little boy, a little girl, it could be a race car next to the Virgin Mary. And so they're little tiny charms. So you'll see crosses all over Mexico with these charms hammered into them. And real ones, the intention, and this is where 2 communities gathered when I did this piece. So I thought about the Nkisi of Central and Sub-Saharan Africa. So Nkisis are totems that a shaman or, I don't want to say medicine man, woman, but a holy person would create for an ill that happened in the community. So it could be something as simple as my husband's shoes didn't wind up underneath our bed for the last 3 nights, or it could be cholera has struck the entire nation, or drought and we have no crops. So things are put in this sculpted piece and prayers are said and it's buried. It's never to be seen again. So when you see them in museums, you know one of 2 things. Either it's not real or somebody stole something. Know that when you see an Nkisi in a museum, one of the 2 things. So the Milagros works the same kind of way. So you would take the charms and the cross to a priest. You'd leave it at the foot of the church. They would pray until whatever this illness is settled. And then they're disposed of. So I created on the torso I think on that torso there are 800 of the charms. It might be a few more that I didn't nail them in. I glued them on, and they create their own kind of pattern and their own kind of story, and they're round where a woman's, new life might be, and so it's just covered in these beautiful silver tone charms, and I think that's probably my favorite because it combines two very desperate communities and traditions that are doing the same thing. Say, I need to fix a problem. Help me fix it.
Thank you for all of that information. I'm still processing a lot.
It's a lot.
Of this.
It's a
Yes,
lot.
and-
Right? It took me a long time to get to all of it. I'm throwing it all at you like this.
Yes, and how Black and brown communities, there's always an equity issue when it comes to those communities. And you're explaining it more also when it comes to water equity, which is really interesting and unfortunate, and just thinking about what can we do about that. And I love that you're showing the issue in your art to spread the word. I would like to know more about the art. When people look at your art, what do you want people to take away from it when they see it? What do you want them to feel, or what do you want them to think, or what do you think they do think and feel when they look at it versus what you actually want them to think and feel when they look at it?
So I started out my life in the arts as a performance artist.
Wow.
Not as a visual artist. I always did visual art, but I made my living on the stage and in front of the camera doing commercial work. And as a thespian, it sounds so funny, such a funny
I can
word.
see it, though.
Such a funny word. You know that the writer who creates all these beautiful words, once they're finished, they hand them off to a director. They're done. Then the director puts their spin on it and hands the script to an actor and entrusts the actor to move within those words and how they're moving you about a stage. You get all that, you do that. The product's not done until there's an audience. The audience is the last part of that puzzle. The audience is the one who decides if this is credible, if this is funny, if this is insightful. It's nothing that we did before. That's all for naught if an audience doesn't get it. So as I became a visual artist, I did something that I think a lot of visual artists don't think about. I think about my audience. I think about what are they going to take from this? How are they going to feel full when they leave? Are they going to feel like their money was worth it, whether they're buying something or just viewing it? What are they going to feel when they leave? And so I've created a whole nother kind of paradigm on how I do my work than I think most visual artists do. I think most visual artists are happy to stay in the studio and shut a door and make art and, oh, well, no one likes it. I want somebody to like the work, and I want somebody to think about the work. Yeah. So especially with the dust in their veins, I really needed people to think. I didn't want them to just look at this and go, wow, this is nice. I needed you to think. I needed you to act. I asked for actionables from that particular show. And the most wonderful thing that happened to me was when the first show I produced myself, then it was taken to the DuSable Museum, and the young woman who was the education director, or assistant to the education director at the time, Q. Jones, she would walk through the exhibition a lot. And she now teaches children. So when COVID started, at the very beginning, if you remember, CDC, WHO, all sorts of orgs, and the mayor's office were doing videos on how to wash your hands and how long you wash your hands. And I'm thinking, this is admirable, but Every time you watch one of those videos, they turned on the water. The water is running while they're like, so, I need you to wash the palms and underneath and sing a song. And, whatever amount of seconds, minutes they said it was for.
It was happy
Wash your hands.
birthday.
The whole
Happy
time
birthday.
the water is running. The entire time the water, what?
Yeah.
So I made a little video and I talked about these entities and I said, I'm thankful for you, but let's see how we really do this. Click on the water, wet your hands, click it down, soap up, sing happy birthday, whether you can sing or not, da 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 da. Back on, rinse your hands, back off. You're not wasting water. Do you know how many gallons that would be? While you let water run full force for the happy birthday song? Guess, take a guess. Take a guess.
3,
No,
5.
10.
9 gallons for the happy
Right.
birthday song is what you're
Wow.
wasting.
Mm.
So I made this little video, I showed it. I didn't know other than my little Facebook family who would see it. That young woman, Cuing Jones, she had moved on to teaching. She showed it to her students, and they're like, they got it immediately. One of her little boys made a video to teach his parents how to wash their hands and conserve water.
Yes.
Nice.
She then shared that. I was just like, okay, something I did is
Yes.
okay. When
Yeah.
when a child gets it, you've done all the work you need to do.
Yeah.
There's no more work if a
Something
child
you have
gets it.
done is more than okay. It is inspiring. I know this
Yes, to get
conversation is
people-
really moving me.
Yeah.
I don't have to speak for Adrienne. Her face
Yes.
speaks it.
Still taking it all in.
You really truly do inspire us, and we're
Thank
so
you.
grateful for your work. Can you tell us what inspires you?
Oh, the laughter of children.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than hearing kids laugh. Seeing people prosper.
Yes.
That's
And seeing people overcome. So those are 3 of the things that just make me happy. Because we all deserve to be happy.
Yeah.
There's nobody on the planet who doesn't deserve that. So I don't care what their circumstances are or anything else. Everyone deserves that. So
Wow. Well, Candace Hunter, thank you so much for this conversation. You
Thank
are
you.
truly inspiring.
Yes.
Thank you both.
Thank you for your work.
thank you.
It is moving. And thank you for your activism,
Thank you.
because I do see that your work is a call to action.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so much,
thank you,
Candace.
love.
It was nice having you, and I'm definitely going to think about a lot of things that you said today. Recommend your work to others to look at, and also think about water conservation. When I'm washing my hands, think about Candace and her video and things like that. Thank you so much for being here and for creating this work to share with people, with also actionable steps, which is so important, which you said earlier. So thank you.
Thank you.
Candace, I love your pieces that was on your website, and I think people should check out and see more of your art. You can find more of Candace's art by going to her Instagram. This was a great conversation. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. Please tell your friends to check us out, and we'll see you next time.